everyone. This is the Pause and Practice, Excel Chapter 2, Pause and Practice number 3, movie number 1, excuse me. We're continuing to work on the Paradise Lakes Resort, and this last section of the chapter I think is probably the toughest in the book, just because the ideas and concepts are very complex. Okay, so we're going to take our time and look at that. So the very first thing that we do is we want to be in Cass Lake, and we're going to talk about the if function. So an if function is considered a logical function. So that is, there's two paths. It's a binary decision. So there's a true way and a false way. There's a yes or a no. So you have some kind of a condition that you, or question that you ask, and then there's a path that you can take if that is true, and a different set of steps if it's false. Okay? So in this first instance that we are looking at, we're trying to see if the revenue is below the average. So if we just do this in our mind without thinking about Excel, we know that we would look at the total revenue, right, which is in B11, and we would compare it to the average revenue. So that's here in K15. So is total revenue for April less than the average monthly revenue in K15? So if we were just doing this manually, we would say yes, the revenue is below average, right? So it is true. This revenue is less than this. 7,339 is less than 8,591. Let's go over to July. 9,333 is July's total revenue less than the average monthly revenue? No, it's not. So we would want to put a no in here. So we want to end up with a yes or a no in each of these based on the check. Is this number less than this number? Now, one of the pitfalls is, remember, this number is only in one location. So when we reference this, we're going to have to lock it down. We're going to have to make it an absolute reference and lock the reference to it. So let's go ahead and start this, and the easiest way to begin learning these is to use the function library. So we're going to go to Formulas, Logical, and we're going to look for the if function. So it brings up the function box, the argument box, and so the first thing, and here's what you want to do. So anything that's in bold is a required element in the function. If it's not bold, it is optional. As you move through here, it's going to tell you, first of all, it tells you the overall what the function is, and then for each element you're going to see what that purpose is. So there's some help on this screen for you. As you build it, then you're going to see the answers over here and the overall answer here. So the logical test, we just did it in our minds, is total revenue for April less than the average monthly revenue, and then here's what we need to do. We need to lock that in, right? So we need to do an F4 to make the reference to K15 an absolute. So that says, hey, that's true, and we know that. We can look at that. And here's another thing that I neglected is the conditional operators. So this is a less than. So we have less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, not equal to. Okay, so any of those can condition one side to another. What is the relationship between them? What are we looking at? So we're saying here B11 is less than K15, sorry. So if it's true, we want to put in the word yes. If it's false, we want to put in the word no. Okay? So right here, we're seeing what will be returned. And we know, because we did this in our head, we know it should be a yes. We're going to go ahead and do okay. It put yes in there, and we are good, right? So we want to center that. So we're going to come home and click on center so that the number the word is in the center of the cell. And then we can just copy this across because we thought ahead and used an absolute reference to that average monthly revenue, which doesn't change locations, right? We want to look at May's, we want to look at June's, but we want to always compare it back to this average monthly. So that worked really well. Okay, so we can go back home, Control Home, get back up to the top. And then the next thing that we're going to look at is the sum if. Well, we just did an if, so that's where you test, and you're going to do something based on whether it's true or false. We put a yes or a no. In this one, what we're going to do is we're going to add based on the results of a condition, if a condition is true. So we've done a sum. We know that is adding a group of numbers, but what we're throwing it onto it now is saying, hey, we're going to add these numbers if a certain condition is true. So to do this, we want to go to PLR Camp. And there's two values that we want to figure out here. We want to figure out, so let's look at our data. So we have a camper ID, which we don't really care about. We care about the gender, male or female, and how many that particular camper stayed, right? So we want to find out how many days by females. So we want to add up just the rows where the gender is an F. So we wouldn't add that. We take the 6 plus the 8 plus the 7 plus the 4 plus the 2, right? So if I had a calculator, we could do that. We could figure it out. But that's a lot of work, and we have 38, but what if we had 380 of these campers? You don't want to do that by hand. So we want to learn how to do this sum if. So there's two things that we need to care about. What is the condition, and what are we going to add if the condition is true? So we're looking at females. So the condition here is that the gender is an F. So that's what we want to check. We want to say, hey, if this information in this column is an F, we want to go grab the number of days and add them up. So the condition is gender. What's being added is the number of days. So let's go ahead and in our formula bar, we want to go to the math and trig. That's where the sum if is. And you know what, guys? If you don't know that, you can just do an insert function and check and just try and find it. So let's do sum if with the single, no S on the end, just a single. Hey, it brings it up. Look, there's two required elements, range and criteria. So the first thing is range, is the range of cells that you want evaluated. So we want to start at B4 through B38, right? So we want all of these M's and F's. And we want to look for just the F's, right? Because we're looking for females. So in B4 through B38, we're going to look for F's. And here's the thing. I'm going to go back up here and select this. So all I do is click and drag, and I'm going to hit my F4 because I'm going to copy this down and change it to males. So I want to lock in this range of gender, okay? If I wasn't copying it anywhere, I wouldn't have to do that. So we're saying in this range, look for F's. And then if you find an F, I want you to add this range. And so the range that we're going to add is number of days. So I'm going to pick that. I'm going to hit the F4 because I want to lock that in again because I'm going to move it down. 117 days were spent at the camp by females. So I'm going to do OK, and that is absolutely correct. Sweet. So now I'm going to copy this down. It's still going to say 117, right? Because it's still looking for females. but I'm gonna double click and get into this, and I'm just gonna change that F to an M. So now we're still looking at the same range, but now we're looking for the letter M, and then we're gonna add the numbers up. So if I hit enter, 76 days were spent by people with a gender of M, right? Not too bad. Pretty powerful stuff. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and save this, and I'm gonna stop this movie. We're gonna pick up using the VLOOKUP, one of my favorite functions. Okay guys, thanks.